unimaginable. The little girl we watched check off her bucket list in her last days wasn't sick. Prosecutors say she was killed by her mother. Was there a way that Olivia Gants could have been saved? Make way. Coming through. Denver carves more space away from cars downtown. Here come the buses. Marshall Zellinger took our money to Blackhawk. He said it was for a story. I guess we're about to find out. And if I challenged you to visit all of Colorado's 41 state parks, how fast could you do it? Probably not as fast as this guy. That's next.
Trying to make sense of Colorado's ballot is frustrating, and here's the deal. It's not you. The writing is dense. Our next viewer named David from Littleton, who emailed me today about this, he pointed me to Ballotpedia, which studies elections. They found that Colorado is one of just 3 states where the ballot measures are written at a reading level beyond postdoctorate, meaning some PhD is looking at the ballot going, huh? That's why politics guy Marshall Zellinger offers plain English explainers, like how Proposition DD would legalize sports betting and would fund the state's water plan.
What does Colorado's water have to do with betting on sporting events? Well, if you know how to read this wordy ballot question, it's the basis of Proposition DD. A yes vote on DD allows Colorado to legalize sports betting, tax the revenue made by casinos or sports betting apps, and then use that money mainly for Colorado water projects, but also the regulation of sports betting and gambling addiction services. A no vote on DD means betting on the Avs or Nuggets or any of your favorite sports teams remains illegal in Colorado.
Colorado votes on Proposition DD.
This November, Colorado votes on a plan authorizing sports betting here.
You've probably seen any of 3 ads supporting DD. I mean, they're airing on 9 News.
Only casinos pay the tax.
Only casinos pay to fund Colorado's water plan.
Yeah, casinos pay. That's true. It's just the money you pay them when you lose a bet. So how much could it mean for Colorado's water plan?
DD will tax casino sports betting to fund Colorado's water plan.
This ad says $29 million. Even the Blue Book says, slow down. DD allows the state to keep up to $29 million each year if sports betting becomes popular and casinos take a lot of your money. But the Blue Book that helps guide you through ballot issues shows an estimate of $16 million a year for the first 5 years. So who supports DD? Don't double down on water and environmental groups. Put all your money on the gaming industry. Of the $1.26 million contributed to support DD, almost all of it has come from casinos, sports gaming apps, and the Gaming Association. The reason the language is hard to understand, in a word, Tabor. It has to be worded that way. Shall taxes be increased, blah, blah, blah. One other caveat. Let's say you want to gamble on sports in person if this were to pass. Well, voters in Central City, Blackhawk, and Cripple Creek must approve that in a separate local issue, Kyle.
This stuff is dense. So if you're not going to Cripple Creek, you're just doing it on some app or something?
On your phone, you can do it there, even if the voters locally there say no. If DD passes, you can at least do it on your phone or online.
I like how you moved the little glasses thing from your tie out to your lapel today. That's very
It's
slick.
sweater weather. I got to figure out a plan for it.
I like that a lot. It is sweater weather. All right. Thank you, Marshall. Hey, bit more than 2 weeks from Election Day, and Colorado's ballot returns are sizzling hot. Nearly 3%. No, that's good. That's good. It's sizzling.
Our first look at turnout for November's election shows Coloradans are champing at the bit to vote. It is champing at the bit, not chomping. It's a horse thing. Anyway, back to our champing. The Secretary of State's office says 104,558 ballots have been returned. That is 2.9% of total voters. That is running ahead of the returns from elections in 2017 and 2015. Republican voters are doing more champing right now, leading in returns in double digits. Now, this is where we have to say, we just know their registration, not how they voted. And Champ City is Colorado Springs. El Paso County far outpaced Denver in ballot returns right now. Remember, ballots must be returned back in the hands of election workers by 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 5th. Check your ballot envelope for your Champ stamp to prove that you voted.
And let's continue to take apart anything on your ballot that seems confusing. You can email me questions or concerns at next@9news.com. I read every single email, or you can get my attention with the hashtag #HeyNext. Colorado has been taking a hard line on opioid lawsuits, not signing up for every settlement that's been grabbed by other states. Within the last hour, though, we've seen the first sign that Colorado is close to getting some cash compensation for the damage done by opioids. This is a national settlement. It's $48 billion in total. If approved, Colorado would be in line to get some of that money for treatment and addiction services. We don't know how much. This is a separate, smaller settlement than what might result from the lawsuit against Purdue Pharma and the family that owns that company. Colorado held out on a much larger settlement in that case. Olivia Gants' story captivated Colorado. A very sick little girl who always managed to smile as she checked off items on her bucket list, like riding along with police 2 years ago. Prosecutors say what we didn't know then is that Olivia's illnesses were the work of her mother. Kevin Vaughn from our 9 Wants to Know team broke the news of the murder indictment this morning.
Back then, back in the months before Olivia Gants died, the story seemed so clear. A smiling girl who'd been dealt a terrible medical hand, a devoted mother. Today, a very different story has emerged. Olivia Gants is dead, and her mother, Kelly Turner, has been indicted, accused of murdering her daughter in a long-running scheme to gain attention. She's behind bars, being held on bail on a 13-count indictment. Among the many shocking aspects of the case is that a number of doctors who saw Olivia had questions, even suspicions. At least 5 did not believe she was terminally ill, and yet she died.
Regardless of what the outcome is, we need to all take a step back and say, what could we have done to prevent this, to make sure this never happens again?
A cautionary tale for Dr. Camilla Sasson, an emergency room physician who was saddened but not shocked by the indictment.
I know at the end of the day, though, that the system as a whole failed Olivia.
Kevin, it's so easy to come back and to think about watching those videos back. Does anything look strange? Does her mom's behavior seem odd? People deal with grief and trauma in different ways, so that's kind of a fool's errand. But it is fair to ask, could doctors or somebody have pieced this together?
Kyle, when you read this indictment, there were 5 doctors that told investigators in the last year that back in real time, when they were treating Olivia, they did not believe she was terminally ill. That's 5 doctors who didn't think she was terminally ill. There were other doctors who expressed surprise that she had died, who questioned things along the way, but it never got to the point where a group of people got together and said, we're going to step in some way, like has subsequently happened, after it was too late to save her life, of course.
And you think about who might have had a view of the entire situation. I mean, like, you've got the Make-A-Wish folks. They rely on the doctors telling them, you know, this is a terminal diagnosis. Who might have been in a position to look at all of the facts?
Somebody like a primary care physician might have been. There's no mention of a primary care doctor in here. That doesn't mean she didn't have one, but the investigators, if they talked to one, didn't document it in the indictment. So we don't know. That would be the kind of person that, by looking at these reports from all these specialists who are treating her for these various ailments she supposedly had, that might have come to a more global look at what was really wrong with her.
Mother raised a lot of money, got a lot of attention, and is now facing murder among other charges. All right, Kevin, thank you very much.
You bet.
My first thoughts after hearing about Kevin's story are for Olivia Gants herself, and how I hope that she did not know what prosecutors say was really happening, that her mother was what was killing her. Then my next thoughts are for the next sick kid we're going to see, a child we'll be told has more wishes than time. And I really hope that Olivia Gants' story doesn't harden our hearts to that child and that family. Yes, we want medical professionals to be appropriately skeptical. We want them to be communicating with each other. Absolutely want everyone to be very careful before donating $1 to an online cause based on nothing more than a photo and a sad story. But what I want for that next child is exactly what Colorado showed Olivia Gants: unlimited kindness and love and compassion. Because Olivia needed those things, even if we didn't know why. May I make a recommendation? I would encourage you to read the very honest account of my colleague Jeremy Hohola about how reporting on tragedy after tragedy can pile up inside journalists. Jeremy has offered a deeply personal account about how he neglected his own mental health over 20 years. His career put him in the aftermath of a number of tragedies, most recently the STEM school shooting. And Jeremy shares how it impacted his mental health in the days after, and also talks really frankly about how he understands that his reporting impacts people in the community, often in a negative way. We have a link to his writings on the next Facebook page. The city of Denver is changing our roads, doing that to try and change how we use them, to encourage more people to take the bus. Anusha Roy looks at the difficult business of reshaping a city.
You have to look down to notice the change. A car lane on 15th between Court and Larimer is now gone and set aside for buses.
Give buses their own safe place to operate, just like cars and bikes on this corridor.
There's a pattern here because similar changes are coming to 17th, 18th, and 19th Streets by 2021.
Make it appealing so more people say, hey, I don't always have to take my car.
To change people's habit, the city said they needed to improve safety and make sure buses run on time, especially in corridors like 15th Street, where as many as 60 buses can move through an hour.
We can't grow to the extent that we've grown and all ride cars.
It sounds great, except Jeremy Larson isn't convinced it'll work.
Multiple conversations about impact studies on parking, on thoroughfare traffic, on pedestrian, on safety.
He has a lot of questions after the city put his neighborhood on a list of roads that need change, but acknowledged they don't have all the answers.
I can't use public transportation in my business. It just doesn't happen. Half my subcontractors can't take the bus to work.
Public Works says a part of Lincoln that cuts through Wash Park could use some improvements and is proposing turning parking into a bus lane, either for 24 hours or during the day, and then freeing the road up for people to park at night.
One of the gentlemen at the meeting has an elderly father, and he is wheelchair bound, but he can drive. And he's going to have to now park somewhere in the middle of a neighborhood somewhere and take his wheelchair to get to his son's house.
The city says they know not everyone is happy and won't know the full impact on parking until they figure out which option people like the most.
We can't continue to do what we're doing and manage congestion. So we are transforming the way we move in Denver and transforming our streets.
The city says after they turned a part of Broadway into a 24-hour bus lane, they did see some more people using those buses. There is a public meeting about the Lincoln proposal that is coming up the day after tomorrow. And Kyle, they are very ready and very well aware that some people are not happy about this proposal.
Anusha, it occurs to me they're carving out more space for buses at the same time that RTD is saying they might do significant service reductions and knock down the number of buses running through Denver.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a reflection of how many people need to use the buses, and it's definitely not a reflection of what the city is hoping will happen and with people's commuting habits as well.
Yeah, it's a matter that RTD can't find and keep enough drivers.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference if there's more people in the city who are driving.
Sure. All right, Anusha, thank you.
He came to Colorado and didn't want to waste a day.
There were several thousands of miles involved when you figure this is a pretty good-sized state, especially when you come from New Jersey, which is the third smallest state.
He packed a lot into his first year here. A next viewer spots a sign that suggests a school zone is located in the fast lane. And the story of a tree that grew up alongside a family and then one day grew old. That's next.
If peak bagging is how you hit all of Colorado's 14ers, we'll call the more leisurely collection park bagging, hitting all 41 of Colorado state parks. A 78-year-old guy from Lakewood did it in just more than a year. Our Byron Reed caught up with Robert Aronson, a transplant who is quickly putting down roots.
The story of my life is on the walls here.
Sometimes life's little journey,
that was when I graduated from the police academy. They were my buddies.
Can take you in a direction least expected.
I became very ill. I ended up in the hospital back in Jersey. I lived alone.
78-year-old Robert Aronson is a retired first responder.
I'm from New Jersey, South Jersey. A little tender.
Who moved here 3 years ago to be closer to family and see Colorado.
It's an interesting state. It's very diverse compared to what I was used to in South Jersey. We're pretty much rural farmland.
So he decided to see the state by car.
I mean, it was not something that I planned to do.
One state park at a time.
I stopped at Cherry Creek State Park just for the heck of it. And in talking with the people in there, somebody said, oh, by the way, do you have this little booklet? This is the passport book that they gave me.
Aronson visited all 41 state parks through the course of a year. He's only the 6th person to complete the passport program started by Colorado Parks and Wildlife. A milestone.
Mancos.
That almost didn't happen.
I drove to it, went in, and there was nobody there. After a while, we found a ranger, and he was able to stamp my book.
Aronson says the program has helped him travel to see the state.
I love Chatfield because it's got everything, basically.
And complete an unexpected quest.
There were several thousands of miles involved when you figured this is a pretty good sized state, especially when you come from New Jersey.
For Next,
I'm glad I did it. Not going to do it again.
I'm Byron Reed.
Harrison says he did it all in day trips, no overnights, and no GPS. Just use that old-fashioned map and something called a compass. 41 parks, because our 42nd Fisher's Peak just got that status. It's not fully open to the public yet. You get the final word in feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a family in the northern part of our state that refused to say goodbye to a faithful friend. Brian and his family planted a cottonwood tree in their yard in Wellington 15 years ago. Kids played on it for years, and it grew up and grew old, and then its time came. But instead of chopping it down, Brian trimmed and carved it into this chair for his family to use for years to come. Isn't that neat? What's the most Colorado thing you saw today? Email next at 9news.com so we can share it here. Don writes in to say, you figured you would nip it in the bud by getting champing at the bit correct and avoid the email from your curmudgeonly loyal viewer. I wrote anyway to say thanks. And another note that says, also, it's Champa Street, not Champa Street. Not sure that's a mistake that we've made here before, but thank you for the clarification, and we'll see you next time.